What is going on, guys? It's Adam A.K. Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. We got on today. Great day here in Washington. Very, very sunny. But again, crazy stuff going on around the world. As we're having a nice day here, a picturesque day, there are places all over the country having extreme weather events. And, of course, Israel, North Korea, China, every bit of war is about to pop off. That is not an exaggeration. And again, if you're new here, every article, tweet, video, picture, document is going to be available over on marfooglenews.com. We're going to go over some scary stuff today. So today's episode, I would warn you, if you are highly sensitive to scary movies, don't watch scary movies. If you're highly sensitive to scary news, then this is not the show for you. World tensions coming to a boil, warns UK Armed Forces head. The head of the British Armed Forces has warned that simmering tensions around the world are coming to a boil. Admiral Sir Tony Radakin, the Chief of Defense Staff, cited a belligerent North Korea, a more assertive China, and last October's barbaric attacks in Israel. It says that some of the conflicts have inflamed hostilities around the world. Speaking at the Ash Carter Exchange in Washington, Sir Tony said, "All around the world, long simmering tensions feel like they are coming to a boil." Sound familiar? It's because, of course, this community has been talking about this for 5-6 years. We knew we saw the framework of a world war brewing a very long time ago. In fact, back then, people were itching for it to happen. They were saying, they were hoping for it to be tomorrow. Again, this is a long game. This is world takeover. This is a world-changing event that is about to happen. Hopefully, we end up on the right side of it. He added that the world is undeniably becoming much more dangerous. It has gone from being competitive to contested. And now, as we saw from Iran's attack against Israel, it is increasingly combative. The military chief condemned Russia's conflict in Ukraine, which he says shows no sign of ending, but he insisted that Russia was operating on a downward trajectory. He said that Moscow has made itself weaker and more isolated. Of course, that was talking about the world stage, and Vladimir's Black Sea Fleet has, quote, scattered as it's been forced to hide from Ukraine's naval drones. So I don't know what to believe as far as I do agree with some of this, but on the other hand, I don't know where he's getting his information about Russia hiding from Ukraine. Ukraine is the one where we literally just covered last week that they moved Abrams tanks to the very back line because they were getting them bombed into heaven. So it was pretty bad that basically any tanks that they put up front were getting absolutely destroyed by systems that they couldn't even see coming. So we're going to talk about this and much more on tonight's episode of Marfoogle TV. Stick around. This is on the lighter side. So we'll be right back right after this. Nothing in the show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, well, there's a couple more points before we move on. I want to point out, he pointed out something that not too many people are talking about. Another cause for concern is Kosovo and Serbia are at loggerheads. Really, you don't hear much about that, but of course then you have also Venezuela and Guyana. These are all, of course, most of which we hear about because the U.S. has backed or has offered to back or help one side or the other. Once we decide to help the other side, usually it's either Russia or China or one of our other adversaries that steps in to help the other. It says, despite such volatility, Sir Tony insisted that NATO is stepping up. Specifically, I wonder if he is mentioning this because of France. France actually stating that he is going to be one of the first ones to order in his troops. This is something that's been talked about over the last month. In fact, Macron has said that he goes, everybody needs to stop being a wussy, and we need to understand that we're probably going to have to send troops in. That's a scary thought, especially with the Ukraine military at an average age of, I think, 43 years old, meaning that all of the young guys are, goners, and the fact that they're trying to grab all of the draft dodgers, 152,000 of them, right this instant. They're trying to grab every last one, bring them back to fight. That shows that maybe they're not doing so hot. So not very good considering that we have put a lot of money into this and a lot of equipment and a lot of taxpayer dollars into a conflict that seems like it is probably going to lose. Since the 2014 Wales Summit, defense spending by Europe and Canada has increased by more than $600 billion. Our collective defense budget is 3.5 times more than Russia and China combined. One thing I want to point out, though, is others are saying that China has a secret budget that obviously they do not declare. At the same time, they're saying they're going broke. All of a sudden, they have the largest navy in the world. They're producing and making more jets, more planes, more drones, more boats, more navy ships, more carriers, and more nuclear silos than anybody at the same time as tanks and everything else. Yet they are saying that they're going broke and that their economy is about to go bust. Is it because they're secretly taking money off to the side and not only hoarding with it, buying gold, keeping their natural resources, keeping their corn, their wheat, everything else, but are they also using that money and putting it into, say, war? I don't know. It seems like that's what's going on. But we'll talk about it more today. Let's bring in my co-host / internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So when we talk to our friends and family about this, about these subjects, a lot of people, I don't think people think you're crazy anymore. If you bring up in a conversation, you say, "Hey, it's really looking like World War III is coming," a majority of people will say, "Yeah, it does." Nobody is really saying what they said 2 or 3 years ago, which is like, I don't know, or they don't care, or they're not really into it. Most people are now understanding that this is actually a possibility. Not to mention now mainstream media is pushing it down the throats. Remember, mainstream media, because it's coming out of mainstream media, everybody just assumes, and they've been kind of almost mentally trained to think, oh, fake news. They believe the opposite of the MSM at this point, especially in our community. But one thing to think about is that when they push something, they want to make sure that you think about that. They want to use whatever situation there is, and they don't want it to go to waste. They can use it to guide you into something else. They can use it to guide you and control you. And it's not MSM that's in charge. It's the people that are in charge of the MSM. The same people that are in charge of the MSM are the same people that are on different boards, that have different camping trips, that have different closed-door meetings with the people that are above president, prime minister, and prince. So very, very crazy things going on. Dex, as far as a boiling point, we are literally at a boiling point. I don't think that there's a better way to put it. We're waiting for some sort of event, some sort of boil over event where the water boils over the pot, or a big, huge bubble just bursts.
I couldn't agree more. We keep seeing this. We've been talking about it for years, and we've seen the buildup over the last year. And it all started mostly, a lot of it started at that hot point with obviously the invasion of UKR and what started there 2 years ago. But even this whole notion of getting to a boiling point and the things that China is doing, we've had other high-ranking officials from our military tell us that, it's almost a similar strategy in the sense that they're slow cooking the frog, which is another analogy to be used, where they're doing a lot of things that are basically getting them to the point of conflict, but you won't notice because they're taking baby steps. And it's sort of like when you throw the frog in the water, in the cold water, and you boil the pot, the frog just swims around, has a good time until at some point he actually doesn't because he's now being cooked. He never realized it. He could have jumped out at any time, but he didn't. So that's, we're definitely beyond that point. I think we're beyond the point of jumping out. I think we're at the point where, at least at the global view, I totally agree. Things are not heading in the correct direction. And if you think of the stuff ebbing and flowing, we're ebbing in the wrong way. And we'll probably be heading in that direction for a while before we recover back to peaceful times.
And how many people here believe that we are being chipped away at one piece at a time, one piece of infrastructure, one piece of culture, one piece of morals? How many people, and you can put in the chat or in the comments, again, if you can put an insightful, thoughtful comment down below, it would really be appreciated. Not only does it help us, but it also gives the community a chance to respond as well. As far as, do you think that they've been picking stuff down? And by they, I mean, I guess the powers that be, because we really don't know. I assume that the people that are all the main figureheads that are all over the news, the main leaders, those are sitting at the table. But I almost think it's like they're sitting at the kids' table. If you've ever had a Christmas where you had all the kids sitting at a separate table, just going ham, that would be the world leaders. Who's sitting at the adult table? That is something that some think they know, like, oh, it's Mr. Gates or it's this or that. There are people way, way above that, and they're so above that Forbes doesn't put their names or their monetary value on a piece of paper. They don't put their information out. They have enough money to call, a platform or a search engine and be like, I want everything deleted. If anything new pops up, I need you to have an algorithm that personally removes it. Those are the kind of people we're talking about. Those exist and don't exist at the same time, if you get my meaning. Those people are the ones that are in charge, and I almost guarantee you they are part of families that have been in control and in money since before the civil conflict, before conflicts before that, probably going back to before the Black Plague. Those people are the ones that are still in charge, even though by the open look of it, you would think, oh, those people are in magazines and they're traveling around. Those are not the ones. It's the ones that you don't hear about that are most likely doing the most. There are groups. I think even Mr. Shab there, I don't even think he is at the very top of it. I think he is just another person at the kids' table. And that's a scary thought to think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. M. St. G, thank you so much. Says, thanks for your hard work on news, Marf, Dex, and mods. Well, thank you. And again, if you want to support the mods, of course, go over to marfooglenews.com/friends and go subscribe. You can easily reach it, marfooglenews.com/friends. You can drop an M in the chat right now if you want to say hello. And then let's see here. Let's go over to the map, and we're going to bring you over to rifle-armed robot dogs are now being tested by Marine Special Operators. Now, this is actually an update. Dex, do you want to go over? Because we've covered these before. But so first of all, they've added certain things. We first covered the dogs, then we covered arms that could open doors, then we covered 40 cals being put on the backs of these things. Now they have some updates on this.
Yeah, certainly. So it's been proven that they could do it, but now what's happening is the military, is more specifically the Marine Corps Special Operators or Special Operations SOC, MARSOC, as others refer to them, has been given the permission to go ahead and the approval to go ahead and do training and testing with robotic dogs equipped with, remote weapons on them that can also detect targets automatically. Okay, so they can detect the target automatically, they say, before they are given approval to fire. So basically, it goes into some detail about the company, Onyx Industries, and Eric Schell, who is the head of the business development. He's basically given an interview talking about the capabilities and talking about which type of weapon system is on it. And I think we have a picture we could show you of what it looks like, but you can imagine it's the same dog we've seen. It's the standard looking robot dog, but it's just got this big, large 7.62 caliber weapon put on top of it. But what's really important is one of the things Shell, the guy from the company, was talking about is he explained that the autonomous weapon systems will scan and detect targets, locking onto drones, people, and vehicles. So it automatically is detecting people. So this dog running around with a weapon system on it can detect people and lock onto them. They haven't gone so far as to say whether or not it can engage on its own. But at the moment they're saying they're trying to let the human decide whether or not to engage. But we know it's only a matter of, a couple of lines of code to decide to change that and say, okay, well, these drones can start actually performing on their own. Now, a lot of the drones of this size have been doing a lot of tunnel work, other types of work, going into buildings, looking for things. So we're starting to see these emerge. And I won't be surprised if this passes with some sort of flying colors, and we will move on to the next phase where it may actually just go out and do the hard work on its own, not only doing the detection, but even going ahead and making the decisions. And that's what's scary, is we're right on the brink of that.
Now, the robot dog that I'm showing you is not from Shell Industries or whatever they call it. That's from an episode of Black Mirror. Black Mirror did a black and white episode, and if you haven't seen Black Mirror, they're pretty good, and they're pretty predictive, and what's really scary is Hollywood has called all of this stuff. I mean, heck, you go back to Idiocracy, they called the robot vacuum, like things like that. People like T-Man being president and things like this, Hollywood kind of figures. There's been a lot of these things that have actually popped up. In the movie, or in the show, this was like really terrifying. And the scariest part is that we all see this happening right in front of us. These robot dogs being able to spot either drones, the drones make sense. But to actually give it the hardware and the software to be able to detect people and pop, this is why we do not need any kind of AI in charge of any of our weapon systems or any of our equipment, any of this. And also, when you do this, you're also putting it into basically a computer that can be hacked. Now, in Leave the World Behind, one of the scenes that really stuck out and Elon Musk even responded to was in that movie they show a bunch of white Teslas that were basically hacked and taken off of a lot, straight brand new with the sticker in it and all, essentially driving themselves and plugging up all of the major roadways. A massive virus that went out and had them, block all of the roadways, which screwed everything up. What's really, really scary about this is something that most of us believe is not only possible, but it's probable in the event of a huge attack. It's almost like as we get technologically more advanced, we're actually giving ourselves more ways to screw ourselves over, to pop us in our own foot. These robot dogs having, 7.62 calibers, people go, oh, I can't believe they're doing that. They should never add this to it. The reason why you're seeing robot dogs in the police forces, or they're trying to add this, those robot dogs weren't the first ones, and these are the second. The entire thing, almost everything we see, was a military project first. All of these things are military projects before they come over to the consumer side. Almost everything that you see, including, consumer drones and things, before that, they were doing consumer drones in the military. Almost all the stuff that we see as consumers was once a military project. So I can only imagine how fast and how far these are ahead of everything else. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up putting a shank on one of these dogs. That wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. And then when they start using them, they can put swarms of these things. Nobody talks about everybody talks about the flying swarms, but nobody talks about the swarms of dogs. That movie portrayed just a couple at a time, being able to run and jump and open doors and saw through things and get into anywhere. That is actually possible now. It would have been restricted quite a few years back because of battery technology and the technology to run it, because they can't really have a diesel engine on a small dog, but they can have an electric battery. And the better that the technology has gotten, now we've gotten to the point where they could have these, Terminator dogs out and about. People aren't afraid of these. Majority of people don't care. Preppers and people that have watched everything go super fast, we're looking at it and going, okay, this is really going to come soon. And people don't realize the next war is going to be bonkers. Like the next major war with the U.S. and any other country, it's going to be nuts. It already is in Ukraine. They're testing a lot of this stuff in real life scenarios. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. What if something goes wrong? What if somebody hacks them? What if the software is wrong and ends up taking out a whole platoon? Like, these are the questions I have. And then NATO spy boss warns Vladimir Putin mulling invasion, sparking World War III fears. Dex, do you want to go over that?
Certainly. Yaroslav Štuvik, head of the Poland Counterintelligence Service, has warned that the Russian leader may actually launch an attack against certain countries as a way to test the response of NATO. He is suggesting that they're going to go into the Baltic area. Now, we've heard this numerous times before. It's been the most common threat, the most common one they're preparing for. We've reported about all the troops, whether it be German troops that were going to be stationed in Estonia, Swedish troops that were moving in, other troops that were moving into one of those two or three countries that are up there in the Baltic area. But more specifically, his specific quote talks about even the Swedish islands. So he says Putin is certainly already prepared for some mine operation against one of the Baltic countries. For example, to enter the famous Narva, which is in Estonia, or to land on one of the Swedish islands. So there's probably some contested little areas or these smaller islands that if they went in and occupied it, it would technically be a breach. And then the question is, how would everybody respond? And that's what this intelligence official is saying. So his job is to look at counterintelligence, and he's not a low ranking. He is the head of it for Poland. It's his position. He goes on to say what the West is doing together to support UKR shows him that in the event of an attack on NATO, the Western response would be even greater. Of course, rah, 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 the West is great. But I think what we need to look at is to determine, is this just something they're putting out, some rhetoric to continue to, conflate the situation, or is this really intelligence that he's looking at, that he has insight that, Russia may actually test those little areas, those small areas. We're not talking about crossing a major border with a whole bunch of troops and rolling into all of Estonia or even Poland or anything like that. We're talking about just picking up a little island here, just grabbing, this Swedish island or one of the islands that is in Estonia. So, and, that would be a much different. And there's definitely areas in those locations that are close to the one country that's landlocked. I can't remember the name. The one portion of Russia that's landlocked in between there. Adam, do you remember the name of that?
Kaliningrad.
Yeah, Kaliningrad. Yeah. So there's probably some contested areas around there that might make sense for a challenge, and that's what he's exactly describing, is how to make a challenge.
Yeah. So, and either way, this would also go into the message, and I know that there's probably a lot of you that are thinking the Polish statements and what's going on is probably part of a bigger ganda. What the chatter is that NATO somehow is going to force Russia's hand to get into a conflict. To a normal person, that sounds really crazy, because everybody's like, why would they purposely start a world war? Because when they think of a world war, they think, nuclear, mutually assured destruction. But World War would immediately, all of the countries, remember, they want to get every country under one umbrella. Every country in the world, including these adversaries. If it is the way that some people think, that everybody is actually working together, then this would be so much more beneficial for those groups. All of the laws would immediately change. Wartime laws go into effect, and they can control everything. Just like CV, when they put in permanent changes, and now some of them are being reversed, but it's like when CV happened, immediately so many different things were able to be done, even illegal things that the government has now admitted that they said, yeah, we did some illegal stuff. Even those things were able to be done because of a disaster. Understand that World War is the biggest disaster they have. As far as on the back burner, that is the largest disaster in the world. And if they are trying to get all of these other countries under one umbrella, then this is a really easy way to do it. Now, when all of the dust settles, the war settles and everything else, what if we're not the number one? And what if China doesn't have say China wins out of everybody, China, Russia, all of these groups win, does that mean that the whole world is a communist nation? It might actually end up being a whole lot like it. If you look at what is going on in not only our country, but in other countries, they're actually guiding people towards other forms of society, right? If they meet somewhere in the middle. I don't think everywhere will be exactly like China, but gosh, it's getting a whole lot closer to that than it is to freedom of speech, freedom of this, freedom of that, freedom of movement. All of that, we see them actually saying that they're going to remove certain things. I mean, think about this. If you don't have the freedom to travel without paying an exorbitant amount because you don't want to leave a big footprint, or they don't want you to have a big footprint, they don't want you to travel every mile that you travel by air, they're going to charge you an extra fee for, or not even let you, or give you a certain amount. If you eat meat, you're going to be limited to 8 ounces of beef per month, or per year. I think it was per month. Think about that kind of stuff. And that's like meat, like in general, beef, whether that be a hamburger, it could be one hamburger, could be your month long, allotment. This is something our president said in one of his speeches. Says by 2030, we would love it to be where, 8 ounces of steak per month. They are saying things out loud. All of the things are going to change. How are they going to do this unless something absolutely massive happens? It can happen subtly over the next 6 years, but it would be way, way faster, and they could almost be buttoning up everything by 2030 if all of this happens in 2024, 2025. It's really spooky to think about how fast this would move. And we think of it as this side versus that side, but we should also think about it as well as that, maybe there's powers that are way bigger than this, that are above all of the sides. And their goal is to actually have everybody under one umbrella. So just a thought, keep it in mind, because we've got to keep an open mind with everything. And again, that's not like my full opinion, because my opinion changes from day to day, depending on, what kind of moves that they're making. They're constantly doing 4D chess to keep us confused, to keep us stupid, to keep us absolutely guessing on what's going to happen. And I guess it's our job to try to just keep guessing until and try to prepare the best we can for something that is almost unpredictable. At the same time, there's a lot of signs that there is going to be, exactly that happen, a absolutely massive world war that immediately they could change everything. And then we'll wake up when everything settles, and we'll have different people running the world, and a different number one, a different number two, a different number three. And I don't think that even us in America, we can't even think of that. We can't accept it. Many people can say, no, yeah, right. Just like that gentleman said, our budget is 3 times the amount of that. Well, what if there's a secret budget we don't know about? What if there's rich people that have more money than all of this, and they're secretly in the back end saying, we'll give you everything? Before we move on, make sure to go check out EMP Shield. Of course, if you want to protect yourself against not only an EMP strike from an adversary, but you can also protect yourself against a CME or a Carrington level event. This is a really simple device. It's the same company that has outfitted agencies like DHS, DOD, and the DEMSO team, all of which are now protecting themselves against this kind of threat, but at the same time not telling the public that, we should be. If you want to get the same protection for your home, your car, motorcycle, boat, generators, even your ham radio, you can do so at marfooglenews.com/EMP. It will ground the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it's able to fry your car, truck, or other device, and then you'll be able to get out to bug out or get home to bug in. Not only that, if you have it on your home, you'll have everything protected within 250 linear feet from where it's wired in, and then your stuff will work either when the power does come back on or when you boot it up with the generator. Go to marfooglenews.com/EMP and make sure to use the code MARF. This is, again, important because you end up helping us. We end up helping you with a giant $50 off discount per device, and you're helping your favorite independent channel. So thank you guys. And we are truly independent. We don't have a multi-channel network. We don't have a multi-billion-dollar company behind us. We have the Foogle fam. So thank you guys. You're amazing. More so than anything, though, please share us out. And then Russia hits Ukraine's power grid with a massive attack on a day marking WW2 defeat of Nazism. Russian forces unleashed a nighttime barrage of more than 50 cruise missiles and explosive drones at Ukraine's power grid on Wednesday, targeting a wide area, what President Vladimir Zelensky called a massive attack on the day the country celebrates the defeat of the Nazis in World War II. The bombardment blasted targets in 7 UKR regions, including Kiev area and parts of South and West, damaging homes and country's rail network, authorities said, and then 3 people, including an 8-year-old girl, were injured, according to officials. So it's pretty crazy. They actually bombed 7 parts of different places all over Ukraine. It looks like they don't have a death toll from that. So they were really targeted on this. That means they were going straight up at infrastructure deep at night. I'm surprised the janitor wasn't, taken out. Russia has repeatedly pounded Ukraine's energy infrastructure during the war that is stretching into its 3rd year and has claimed thousands of lives. By taking out the power, the Kremlin's forces aim to rob Ukrainian manufacturing of its energy supply, especially military plants, and crush public morale. I wish I could remember who ended up doing an interview, but they talked about how Russia is being very careful, and one of the things they talked about is how no matter who it is, of course, we all have our public opinion and kind of the different messaging about Russia, China, and all of these other countries. But majority of Western media is like Russia bad, Vladimir evil, that kind of thing. But as far as his people in his country, what is his image to them? The guy pointed out how if he just wiped out a whole place, or if he went in there and just crushed people, just did the nastiest tactics, dropped white phosphorus on people, did the just nastiest things, but won instantly, that you're not only fighting a war, but you're also fighting a public war as well. What this gentleman said is that basically that Russia and Vladimir has to win that as well, because if you don't win public opinion, even though you might have won the war, even though you've won the battle, you haven't won the war. Because if people absolutely hate you, then it's absolutely hard to rule a country when you have an entire country of people that don't want you as a president or whatever else. Again, they say that 90 whatever percent voted for him. We all know that all of that can be, figured out, right? But we're told in the West that nobody in Russia likes Vladimir Putin. I've personally talked to Russians. They say that there is a huge chunk of the Russian population that's actually calling on Putin to do more. When different events have happened, they've said, we need to strike Washington, we need to do this. And we're not talking about the Channel 1 propaganda guys. We're talking about the public. It's in their culture. It's in their culture that if somebody punches you, you punch back. So yeah, it's getting pretty nuts over there. And as far as Ukraine, a year and a half ago, this would have been just absolutely massive. Now, nobody's going to even bat an eyelash. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. And then Ukraine orders nationwide electricity rationing after the airstrikes. So we do know, and it's somewhat confirmed, that obviously they lost a lot of power. They're actually going to be telling everybody that they need to essentially ration their electricity. The officials on Wednesday said that they are preparing to order electricity rationing measures across the country after a major overnight missile strike by Russia in the latest and relentless bombing campaign against civilian infrastructure. Brownouts are possible throughout Ukraine between 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. The state energy provider Ukrenagro said in a statement posted on the Telegram social media platform. A statement cited a shortage of electricity in the power system. It says restrictions will be evenly distributed across all regions. Ukrenagro wrote, exactly how the shutdown schedules will operate in each region will be published on the official pages of local regional energy companies. So obviously it worked pretty well if they are, and they're going to end up rationing power across the country and do it evenly, whether that be almost everywhere is going to have a time slot that they're not going to have power. That's pretty big. Now, what happens if tomorrow night they do an identical strike and take out the rest of the power grid? It doesn't really sound like early in the conflict like Ukraine is absolutely going to be victorious and winning this. The very worst, we should look at this and go, okay, well, if Ukraine is losing and losing badly, and if there's even more problems, what does that mean for us here in the U.S.? What does that mean for them in France, right? French president is saying, if this goes south, we got to be ready to send our guys in. If they take out a bunch of Ukrainian soldiers, that's the worst news, because those soldiers are the one thing we can't just send a check for. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you, by the way, Carol. I appreciate. Thank you for the super stickers. Be Real Beast. Thank you. It went through no overdraft. Let's see here. Oh, I get it. That's hilarious. And then Genius by Birth. For whoever needs to hear this, you are not alone and you are loved. Genius by Birth, thank you for stopping by. And again, thank you for being a awesome family member for a long time. Thank you so much. And Sweating Ministries, keep up the good work. Wanted to let you all know that the UN is looking to make Palestine a state on Friday, according to the Jerusalem Post. If they are successful, and along with the red heifers, the Antichrist is not too far behind. Neither is the rapture. Jesus is coming. Well, that's also something that even if you're not religious, if you're not following what's going on with the red heifers and the temple, I mean, the snakes, the wall, all of the things we've covered in the past, it's getting pretty nuts. Even if you're not into prophecies, I think you would probably think it's pretty interesting. And then AM St. G, and then Carol again, thank you. Be Real Beast, and then Sweating Ministries. Thank you guys for supporting Independent. Thank you for sticking by us through thick and thin. I can't say thank you enough. Again, thank you. Let's see here. And Dex, China's military satellites are watching America's every move.
Certainly. So the quote coming from Major General Gregory J. Gagnon, the Space Force Deputy Chief of Space Operations for Intelligence, so an intelligence official from Space Force, says the PLA has rapidly advanced in space in a way that few people can really appreciate. He was speaking, and this was coming up in part of the quotes, but some of the things that have come out of this this conversation from him, space has emerged as a contested domain integral to modern military operations. As countries have sought to track each other's military assets from space, military strategists believe satellites and space-based weapons could be used to fire the first shot in future conflicts. Satellites could be used to jam an opponent's signal during the escalation of military tensions. China actually established its version of Space Force back in 2015, which is before we did. which was placed under the hierarchy of the Army Strategic Support Forces, or the SSF. And then just recently, as we reported, Xi Jinping dissolved the SSF and put it under a new group called the Information Support Force. And it was constituted to merge the SSF in the existing remnant with it. But here's the interesting thing that he's talking about is China has added over 400 satellites in the past 2 years, from which more than half have the capability to track objects on Earth. So that's 200 tracking satellites. He was said as he was talking, I think it was at the Mitchell Institute, they're saying he was doing this speech or giving a presentation. He then went on to say they will now, in a way that we're not comfortable talking about in America, they will be inside a rapidly expanding weapons engagement zone. So basically, they are seeing every move we're making. It used to be we had some secrets. We used to be able to at least move around a little more freely, or we just had to worry about tracking the handful of Russian satellites that we knew were going by. But now they are in with so many they have up there. They know everything we're doing just about everywhere around the world, which I guess is kind of turnabout, because we know everything about everyone else that's doing around the world. So it's a challenge for us, and it is certainly a new eye-opening experience, I guess, for a lot of people. They just don't understand what's going on with Space Force and what's going on with the growing conflict in space.
Well, you know what's crazy too is I've heard from folks that have gone from other countries to China, and including business owners that have said that essentially China, the actual, basically the CCP, part of their thing over the last few years is when they get a huge business owner over there, they treat them like royalty. They show them the sites. They show them a lot of the sites around and how advanced it is in China and how technologically awesome many of the cities are. And they show them all the good things. It reminds me kind of like how, North Korea does their tour, shows them the fully stocked grocery store and, nobody's starving here. But it kind of reminds me of what they've done with some of these folks. I wonder if there's a lot of these huge people at the very top that think, we need to invest in China. This is the best place. Look at how advanced they are. I hear a lot of people bragging about how China's going to be environmentally, number one here in a minute, and that they're going faster than anybody else to getting to, zero footprint and all this. And it's like, they are really setting themselves up for, if they were to be number one, for them to be the peacekeeper, for them to have bases around the world, for them to be the country in charge. As far as the 400 satellites and all of this, it's like, look at what they're doing. They're taking notes directly out of our book, and they are applying those. But here's the thing. If they took over tomorrow, their culture is so much more different than ours. What if they had like a closed-door meeting at one point and they said, well, China's going to take over, but China really can't put up with the way that you guys run your stuff. Like, freedom? What are you guys doing? You know what I mean? Freedom? Oh, yeah, you protest with pieces of paper that say things? Like, no. We're gonna do a 10-year plan. Maybe we'll use social media and other practices, and we'll buy all the media companies, and maybe we'll turn your people more into our people. Yeah, I think that will work. In fact, we'll get it to where they are almost begging to be citizens just like ours. Ha! It's a great idea. Dex, do you get what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, totally. I concur completely. There's one other point I wanted to make from this article, from what this Major General was saying, is he reconfirmed what we had assumed, but he reconfirmed that they are tracking us on a moving basis, and that their satellites can provide precise location of our military vessels on the move at sea. So they basically are tracking and knowing the positioning of all of our ships now. And we've talked about how, it used to be we could be, stealth, or at least, hidden until found, especially in the Pacific theater, but that's long gone.
Which if they track the ships 24/7, there is no secrets, right? There's no way that they can go off and hide and do a surprise attack. They're going to know wherever we move them and whenever we move them. This is a huge problem. Not to mention, if they have the technology they said that they have, a radar blasting system that can not only affect and jam our radar, but also affect our defense systems. Now, it's all up in the air whether it's true or not, but we have admitted, the Pentagon has admitted that they are ahead in 37 out of 44 key areas in advanced technology and AI technology. So it's like, if that's the case, if they have, they said 7 satellites could knock down every ship that we have, every weapon systems, every radar on every carrier on every naval ship, and they said something like 28 or 32 could knock out the whole world. If that is true, think about that 400 number. They have low Earth satellites that can knock out pretty much everything. So hopefully they are full of crap. And then U.S. official says Chinese seizure of the TSMC in Taiwan would be absolutely devastating. So going more into the details of like how, what would actually happen if this happens. By the way, why is this coming out? Why is this being talked about right now? Not many people have actually even been talking about Taiwan lately. There's so much going on around the world. People kind of forgot about this semiconductor chip. It says U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo said Wednesday a Chinese invasion of Taiwan and seizure of chips producer TSMC would be absolutely devastating to the American economy. Asked at a U.S. hearing about the impact, Raimondo said it would be absolutely devastating, declining to comment on how or if it will happen, adding right now the United States buys 92% of its leading-edge chips from TSMC in Taiwan. Understand that almost every electronic, everything that's made here, keep in mind, if we do get in a war with China, they're not going to continue producing things for us. If that's a huge chunk of where the other ones come from, that means that 92% of those chips would dry up, and we would have to find somewhere else to get them. And there's not that many places. That's the whole big deal about this. Last month, Raimondo announced the Commerce Department would award TSMC's, U.S. unit a $6.6 billion subsidy for its most advanced semiconductor production in Phoenix, Arizona, and up to $5 billion in low-cost government loans. TSMC agreed to expand its planned investment by $25 billion to $65 billion and add a third Arizona fab by 2030. That 2030 number. And then a Taiwanese company will produce the world's most advanced 2-nanometer technology at its second Arizona fab, expected to begin production in 2028, the department said. TSMC, the world's largest contract chip maker and a major supplier to Apple and NVIDIA, had previously announced plans to invest $40 billion in Arizona. TSMC expects to begin high-volume production in its first U.S. fab there by the first half of 2025. Dex, you know what I'm thinking about is if they're already going to be producing chips by 2025, would you not think if they were trying to do damage to the U.S. and if they have a small window to hurt us to the point where they take over the world, when would that be? Do you think it would be after we get it up and running and we can support ourselves, or would it be when we're completely at a loss for this technology?
Absolutely, the sooner. The sooner they can, the better. Because even though 2025 is not going to be like, oh, all of a sudden we went from 95% coming out of Taiwan to 100% coming from America. That's not going to be the case. We're just going to be getting some smaller percentage of these high value chips potentially from America. And mind you, they're going to be very expensive too because they're coming from America. But the point is the building of that, the R&D and the knowledge transfer that's going to happen, all of that happens in the early stage. And the first years of that setup, the first years of the production, and even the year after that production starts, those are probably the most critical times. If you were thinking, how could I prevent something like that from happening? then yeah, getting in sooner would be much more important to China and potentially gaining control of TSMC and stopping their ability to expand into the US.
What is going on, Faith Parent? Nice to see you. Carmine Petraka, Big Chase, M. St. G, thank you for being here. Captain Apana, James McGowan, Scobby, nice to see you. Paul Saul, SEAL Team 6 are nice gentlemen. I wouldn't doubt that for the most part. I've been a couple SEAL Team 6 guys, old team that was early 2000s or late 2000 before 10s. They were cool guys. They were at a picnic. Those guys were big dudes. Bobby Sue, what is happening? Mostly serene. Hi from Sodak. Let's do a quick roll call. We've got Anders. We've got Michigan in the house. Anders owned. What is happening? M. St. G. We've got Genius by Birth. 2025 is going to be rough. By 2027, it's going to be beautifully different world. I agree with you. Have any of you seen that show? It is a South Korean show. It took me a minute to figure out where it was from, but it's called Goodbye Earth. Creepy part in that show, they show an asteroid. It's about an asteroid hitting Earth. That's an ELE kind of event, but it bounces back and forth. It shows martial law on Earth. It shows in the very beginning, it actually shows the first episode, like first 10 minutes, they actually show them in a museum listening about how Didymos and DART can redirect asteroids. Man, Reese, okay, so you saw that? It's dubbed over. It's one of the many Netflix movies and shows that, since they're not getting any contracts from any big movies, all of the movies that they had on their, you had to use a VPN to go into that country to get their blockbuster films. Those are now on the main page because they really don't get that many movies anymore. Everybody, Paramount, all these HBO, all these movies companies basically split and did their own site. So now they have to make their own stuff, and they're putting a lot of their foreign stuff on the main page now. It's crazy how fast Netflix went downhill, which some enjoy. But as far as that show, go and watch it if you get a chance. Tell me what you think. For those that have seen it, I thought it was very creepy, predictive programming. They talk about 2025, an asteroid hitting Earth, and they actually go into like how people were preparing and how it would go. It's very creepy. It has a lot of real stuff that's strewn about. And Jonathan Floming, nice to see you. Linda, nice to see you as well. Let's see here. Tim G. James over on X. We've got James Garcia on YouTube. We have Wide Awake and Angry. Jake, nice to see you. Ricky Redstone, thank you. Orange Vanilla Sky. Becky D. Let's see here. Saren, thank you. Martin Moore, thank you. And a few new subscribers. Thank you guys. Baggins, thank you so much. Bilbo Baggins, thank you so much. And we have Sarah, thank you for subscribing. And Gary, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for subscribing. And Gamer420, thank you. I appreciate your subscribe. Appreciate that. Thank you. And welcome to the fam. L4, Rob Mills, and Bobby Sue, thank you, thank you, thank you. Sweat Ministries, as always. Of course, thank you guys. We got people from all over the country and all over the world. Thank you for spending your time and really thank you for loaning it to us. The fact that you find value in our show and spend your time here means a lot. And U.S. and Philippine forces sink a ship during large-scale drills in the disputed South China Sea. This definitely looks like a kind of a puffing of the chest kind of drill. U.S. and Philippine forces, backed by an Australian Air Force surveillance aircraft, unleashed a barrage of high-precision rockets, artillery fire, and airstrikes Wednesday and sank a mock enemy ship as part of a large-scale war drill in and near the disputed South China Sea that have antagonized Beijing. Military officials and diplomats from several countries watched the display of firepower from a hilltop along a sandy coast in Loag City in Ilocos Norte, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Home province. It says more than 16,000 military personnel from the United States and the Philippines, along with a few hundred Australian troops and military observers from 14 countries, were present in the annual combat readiness drills called Bali Katan. Now, that's Tagalog for shoulder to shoulder. Huh. What again, why do you think it was named shoulder to shoulder? What do you think of when you're thinking of shoulder to shoulder? Like shoulder to shoulder room, like you're in a concert venue, you're shoulder to shoulder, you're packed in there like like sardines, right? I wonder if they're kind of talking about how crowded the South China Sea is getting. What do you think they meant by that, and why they named this drill specifically Bali Katan, which means shoulder to shoulder? Dex, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the ship was in shallow water, and now they're claiming it as a new atoll.
Wait a second. Oh, you mean so the ship that they sunk actually had a purpose?
Oh, I'm joking.
Oh,
the other ship that the World War II ship that kind of sunk and it's sitting there as an island. So yeah.
Well, why that sounds believable? Because think about obviously they have their other ship there that they have beached purposely. Why don't they do that? Why don't they do that on all of the little islands? One thing I don't get is why don't they do the same thing that China did, or why don't they actually bring stuff out there? And why do they just have? It seems kind of really like they don't have money at all. I mean, they have budgets for a lot of things. They've got a Coast Guard. Why can't they spend a little money or ask the U.S., which has all of this money for the rest of the world? Why don't they build a tiny barracks over there or something, or a tiny base? They are literally transferring supplies there already for guys who live on a beached ship. Like, what would be so hard about if you still have to bring stuff to it every day anyways? I get that they probably don't have electricity and this and that. Bring a generator, build a small building there, and then have a bunch of guys living there. That's what they're doing anyway, but they're just on a ship. Do you get what I mean, Dex? Like, why aren't they building on these islands? If they want to cement their claim.
I think it's easier. I think in the one case with that one atoll that the ship's on, by occupying it continuously, it makes it easier for them to maintain their claim. If they're not there, it's kind of like a trademark. You can have a trademark, but if you don't defend it, then it's useless and it goes away. So I think it's the same happens here. They have an atoll, they want to make sure it's there, so they have to use it. They have to go to it. They have to stay there all the time and go back and forth. And by having that presence, it makes it easier for them to make their claim.
One of the quotes here is we're under the gun. We don't have the wherewithal to be able to fight all of this bullying coming from China. So where else will we go? Romualdez said, we went to the right party, which is the United States and those that believe in what the U.S. is doing. China has accused the Philippines of setting off hostilities in the disputed waters by encroaching in what it says are its offshore territories, demarcated by 10 dashes on the map. Now, by the way, on our regular map, because they have these artificial islands that are over here, if you actually look at what was always considered as the Philippines waters, the Vietnamese water, what was Taiwan's, China is claiming basically this entire area. It is called the South China Sea, but other than its name, these are all supposed to be the countries next to it, right? So these are supposed to be the waters of this country. This is supposed to be the waters of this country. And then way out there, I guess, how does that work? I guess they have to build islands to do it. But now because they've built these islands, they're basically claiming all of this. It's just crazy because it's the same country that it looks like they're making moves to try to be number one. Where else will they do it to? They're investing heavily, and they've put so much money into those ships that can take the dirt off the bottom of the seafloor and create islands. It's like when you spend billions of dollars investing to double the speed that they can make islands, what do you think that's for? They're going to make more. So, pretty crazy. And then, before we move on, if you haven't already, make sure to go check out My Patriot Supply. There's so much great stuff over there, but mainly, definitely recommend the freeze-dried food because it will last 25 years. It is a big sale right now. You can get $50 off on a 1-month supply. Again, there's all sorts of deals that are going at all times, so make sure to go check for the current deals if you're watching this as a replay. But that's going to last 25 years, so 2053 is when that food will be edible still in 2053. It is sealed in Mylar bags, then sealed in buckets. It's very space efficient, and all you have to do is just add water or cook in water or cook in sauce, and you'll bring it back to life. As far as food cost, I can't imagine where food cost and inflation will be in 20 years from now, or 25, let alone. But even in 5 years from now, in the last 3 years, it has tripled in price as far as freeze-dried food. Inflation's gone nuts, and of course, this is one of the most affordable ways to do it. Now, what they're recommending is you have at least 6 months of food, but that's a really, really hard amount to get to for anybody. 6 months of food is a lot of food for one person, let alone if you have a family of 4 or 5. That's why we recommend this. Say a 3-month supply if you get them in batches or whenever you can. A 3-month supply, you can end up, splitting that for 3 people. That's a month of food. For 2 people, that's a month and a half. So you can do it that way, and then 6 months from now, you can save up and get another one. 6 months, get another one. And maybe at the tail end of the last, 3 or 4 years, you might have some expiring. But again, sooner or later, you're going to have how much you need for an affordable price. Freeze-dried food is super, super expensive. So again, this is a great deal. You get a giant discount through us, and you help us as well. We are completely on our own. So thank you guys for helping us. And again, I think that you will end up using it for some sort of regional disaster. I mean, over a 25-year period, it's most likely you might end up using it because of a hurricane, an earthquake, or a fire, or something else. It's always good to have. It doesn't have to be the end of the world. It can be for anything, including, say, your power goes out for a week because of a rolling blackout, because your local state government is riding the least long bus out there. But you guys take a gander, go over and check it out, marfooglenews.com/prep. And then Chinese network behind one of world's largest online scams. So Dex, do you want to explain how this scam kind of unfolded?
The old saying, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. It probably isn't. So don't do it. So what these folks were doing is they've been creating these fake websites selling or offering high brand products, and they've been targeting people in Europe and America. They've actually been doing it since 2015. So more than 800,000 people in Europe and the US appear to have been duped by this, sharing their card details. So they would set up fake websites offering discounted goods from Dior to Nike, Lacoste, Hugo Boss, Versace, Prada, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. And they would target English. They would even make the websites, some of them in different languages, but they mostly targeted Europeans. So, German, French, Spanish, Swedish, Italian, and obviously English. This has been going on for a long time. It started back in 2015, but they've had more than 1 million orders have been processed in the past 3 years alone, according to analysts. And not all the payments may have actually been successful, but they're estimating they took about 50 million in euros, which is about 53.7 million in US dollars. Many of the people they've talked to, though, said that they did not even receive anything. They thought they were buying something, and they never even got what they were buying. Apparently, about 22,000 of these shops are still up and running, and they have captured between the U.S. and Europe. They have captured somewhere in the neighborhood of 476,000 debit and credit card details, along with phone numbers, email addresses, postal addresses, and networks. So, as much as this may have been a scam to get money, it's also a scam to get data, and it's to get data from people that are probably going after, while it may be discounted, high dollar, high ticket items, they're still high ticket items. So a very interesting targeting scheme they've gone on here, and they've analyzed and come up with. This is coming from a group that's in China.
And what makes it somewhat smart is, say, if it's a $400 purse or something, they will do it for $300, and people are to the point where even if they can save $10 on it, they're going to go and search it out. They'll wait a month instead of getting it on Monday to get the best deal. It's kind of crazy because they're also going for high-end items. Now, everybody can see if it's a $400 item that's $8, yeah, you don't even mess with it. I mean, heck, that's most of Wish. Wish.com is like, it's like, oh, get yourself a laptop for $9. Like, we know it's a bunch of BS. You'll get it, and it's some sort of kid laptop that's, A, B, C, D. You get my drift. But as far as like this kind of stuff, they did it in such a way that it looked somewhat legit because they didn't do stupid, crazy prices. They actually did high amounts, and then some even bought it. As far as that data and these card details, this is a massive, massive operation. But it also shows you just people are looking for any kind of discount. This is going to get worse and worse. It's not going to get better. Even if they put this out there every day on the news, people are continually looking for discounts right now because everybody is struggling. But I'm sure the Joneses, these people that I'm sure there's a few of you in the audience, that try to keep up with your neighbors or have the nicest stuff. You are the ones who end up sadly falling for it, and that they don't have the ability to get Louis Vuitton or Gucci or something, but you want to try, right? I honestly think it's crazy to spend that much money on clothes, but there's a lot of people out there that still want to have the status but don't want to spend the money. And it's going to get worse and worse because now everybody is hurting. So those scams, well, what are they going to do with that information? I wonder, what ends up happening with that. And then U.S. paused bomb shipment to Israel to signal concerns over the Rafah invasion. This is after yesterday's video going viral of tanks rolling over the I love the strip sign, right? I love Gaza. That sign getting run over in two different spots, two different videos that were just put everywhere on the internet. Everybody was just like morally and one thing too that people said is like, well, is this a 4-hour video and they just happen to be running it over and they took that 1 5-second clip and then made it go viral? Or did they purposely film it and go, haha, watch this? A lot of people called it immature at out of if anything, it was a little immature, like, haha, watch us crush this. Some said it was symbolic. Some said it was awesome. I mean, you had all sorts of different opinions there. Some said they deserved it, this and that. But what you see is that there's a huge divide about this online everywhere you look. And what I'm more concerned about is this whole fake messaging that's going on around it. All of a sudden, the U.S. is not beholden to Israel. What is actually going on here? Like, they've always been beholden to Israel. So them acting like they're not, is this just, for November? Is this just temporary? And then tomorrow they'll be helping them and sending, jet fighters in to help, fight Iran? I don't know. But it's they're saying that they paused their deliveries because they're concerned about what is going on with Rafah. Rafah was a red line. If you didn't follow, and this is the first show you've watched in a long time, Rafah is the last part of Palestine, and there's something like over at least 1 million people. They could be up to upwards of 2.2 million people in an eighth of a 25-mile area, so could be in less than 2 or 3 miles that you have all these people stacked up, and they're doing these offensives. So many countries that are backing Palestine, they said that this was a red line and that this is going to mean that there's going to be retaliations and all sorts of other things. Well, now it's happening. At the same time, they're talking about their negotiations for a ceasefire. All of that was happening yesterday. Now, of course, is this going to push their hand far enough to where they, something ends up getting done? I don't know, because all of it seems really fishy. And then, Dex, do you want to talk about kind of the other side, Israel, and how they're
well, of course, now they're jumping in and saying, hey, if U.S., if you don't give us the weapons you were supposed to give us, then you're going to basically sabotage these talks that we're having that could actually free up the people that are being held captive. So they're pushing back hard. I think they'll probably push back even more harder. That's, the first of many. And we'll probably see this back and forth. It's not like we haven't seen it already. The administration has said, well, I'm going to cut you off. And then 2 days later said, I'm cutting you off. But then, next week we're in there, rolling patriots out and doing all sorts of stuff and taking things out across the Middle East. So we've got a lot of rhetoric, but at the same time, we certainly have shown by action that we're still there to defend Israel. And I don't really see that changing from an alliance point of view. We'll see. But right now, obviously, Netanyahu and the rest of the folks there are not happy and want, the U.S. to continue to support and, think that this is not a good position for them to take, because there's a lot of equipment that was coming through, especially in munitions.
And Israel, Hezbollah trade heavy fire as violence escalates. So you've got Hezbollah popping off, and to update, they said that Israel carried out heavy airstrikes in southern Lebanon, and Hezbollah said it had launched explosive drones and powerful rockets at Israeli targets on Wednesday in an escalation of 7 months of hostilities in the border region. Israeli attacks took the lives of 3 in Lebanon, security sources said. The conflict between Hez and Is has rumbled on since October in parallel to the Strip conflict, uprooting tens of thousands of people on both sides of the frontier and fueling concerns of a bigger conflict between the heavily armed adversaries. The Israeli military said it had military structures and infrastructure belonging to the Iran-backed Hezbollah in 3 locations in southern Lebanon, including more than 20 strikes on Hezbollah targets in the Ramya area. So at the same time, you have other groups that are popping off. You have basically an exchange going on between multiple parties. Big worry is if it goes further than this. I guess the majority of you are here in the U.S. There are so many of our friends and family that they will follow to the level of, like, they know the basics so they don't look stupid at a party, or so they can virtue signal to their friends and family that they support one side or the other. But I would look at what everything is lining up with. I would say look at the big picture, look at China and Taiwan, look at North Korea, South Korea, look at Russia, Ukraine, look at Israel and Hezbollah, look at Venezuela and Guyana. Look at the big picture. All of these have a common denominator. The U.S. is involved. So if you're in the U.S. especially, and if you're in the Europe, the same goes to you guys, I would be ready for anything. Look at how many sides we are supporting that are on the opposite side of some of our biggest adversaries. Do you think that we're going to be just out of the picture but helping everybody forever? I don't think so. Dex, go ahead.
Well, another thing that's going on in the north with this recent attack, and it's not just this, it's the buildup, but this is actually the response, or starting to be that response to them going into Rafah. If that, they've always said if that happens, they'll continue to escalate, they being Hez and others. Just like you saw displacement of people in the Strip, even in northern Israel, you've got 60,000 residents that have now had to leave because of the conflict up there. And across the border into Lebanon, you've got 90,000 residents that have been displaced from the opposite side. So you've got people who, just living their lives, right? They're now literally losing their homes and moving out or having to move somewhere because of conflict, because this is going on. The other interesting thing is the Israeli military did say just last month that they had completed another step in preparing for the the conflict or the war with Tez, and that they're centered on logistics and including preparations for a broad mobilization of their reservists. So they're expecting to amp this up on the northern side at a much greater level. And I think they know because it's coming because of what they're doing in the southern strip in Rafah.
Which would be the response, and the whole thing that they said, this is a red line. If you cross it, this is what's going to happen. And then Elon Musk listens to podcasts about fall of civilization to get to sleep, even though it worries him. So, Dex, what did you think when you saw this? So, first of all, for a few years now,
he listens to everybody in our community. He's in our niche. That's the first thing I said when I saw this. I'm like, oh yeah, we already knew this. We could watch his doc connecting.
So first of all, Jacob has said for a long time that Elon has made quotes like right after his show, or things that relate like super weird, like burnt hair cologne after he talks about burnt hair, or these things. And for some reason, like, people really push back on that. Like, people are like, no, he doesn't. Just saying like he would never watch, even though they're watching Jacob or they're watching us or somebody else. They're like, no, he wouldn't. Because I guess they're putting him on a pedestal like he wouldn't watch it. He is somebody who believes in the end of time, in the end of the world. He is somebody who is trying to get people to Mars publicly for the reason of civilization survival, and to be multiplanetary, to save the species, because he believes something is going to happen that could wipe us all out. And if we're single planetary species, that we're all gone. He has talked about people having more kids because there's going to be a population decline and all of this, like all of these things. And people think, oh, he's just avoided this very small but very connected and very specialized niche on the internet. It's like, we're not big. None of us are big YouTubers. We're very small compared to all of these Pootie Pies and 100 million. Heck, you have kids going like this with dinosaurs, and they get 10 million subscribers. But they're not real and specific subscribers. They're just every little kid that goes, push red button. Okay, push red button. You guys are a very specific crowd. We are all people that truly believe in this, and we have found our community. Once you find your community, you are then basically introduced to all of the rest of the community. It's a very tight-knit community. If you watch us, then you most likely know about Jacob, or you know about Canadian Prepper or City Prepper, or all these people in the prepping community, Prepper Nurse, all that, Everyday Prepper, all of these great channels you see, and it's just crazy because he's literally admitting, after we talked about, hey, we think he watches our channel, and by all of our channel, not just, I think he's seen us for sure, because I do believe he watches Jacob. I don't know if he's watched us before, but I have seen a couple responses after we've had shows about very specific and completely not relevant to the current day topics, and then he mentions it. And I don't think, why is that so unbelievable? If this is his kind of side thoughts and his opinions, then he would go out and find who's talking about it. As far as, I don't know how many actual podcasts, we're not a podcast, but people say podcasts, like people call us a podcast. They listen to us on the road while they're driving or at a warehouse. They call us a podcast to their friends. I understand there's a difference between a YouTube video and a live stream and a podcast, but so it says, I quote, I listen to podcasts about the fall of civilizations to fall asleep. That sounds exactly like quotes from a Fugel fan member like 4 nights ago that people literally say, oh, I watch your show to go to sleep. Like, how many times have you heard that in chat? Musk was asked what keeps him up at night and responded, anything that's a civilizational risk. including plummeting birth rates and anything that undermines foundation of democracy in America or elsewhere, as well as anything that's leading us away from a merit-based system. South African-born entrepreneur said he has long theorized that artificial intelligence, declining birth rates, or a single world government could lead to the collapse of civilization. I mean, isn't that just nuts? And I mean, it's just more evidence to go with like what Jacob said. I do believe because if you saw what, because a lot of people were like, no, he doesn't, and oh, that could be a coincidence, or that's this. It's like too many of them, and people thought that Jacob was being silly. I don't think it's that crazy. He's a human being. I think people put him on this crazy thing because of the amount of money he has, that he is somehow like on cloud nine or something. He's a human being. No matter how much money he has, he was born in South Africa. He's a normal person. If he walks by you on the street, he's a human being. I'm sure people have theories about what he actually is, or that he's an alien or whatever. But as far as like what he watches, I almost guarantee he watches this community as far as this niche. I mean, think about the subjects he talks about all the time. That's what this is what we've been talking about for a long time. And it's actually a special kind of person. Like, I don't think I'm normal. I think we're all not normal. Once we kind of woke up to things and saw things, we couldn't go back. It was like, once you go to a certain place and find out certain things, you just can't go back to being in the, going back to the Matrix. Like, you can't just forget that all of this stuff that you learned. You can't forget your thoughts on certain subjects. You can't go back behind the veil again. Like, it doesn't work. So what do you guys think, though? Do you think that it's something else? Do you think he watches our niche, like all of our peers? I think he does. Talks about all the same. But what's creepy is he is in the know. He has more contracts with more governments and everything else, and he keeps making references to like asteroids hitting, this and that. Same guy has put sensors on 1 out of 4 of his Starlinks to detect hypersonic speed objects. He's the same guy that says he's going to get 1 million people to Mars and 1 million people off Earth. It's creepy. Elon, if you're watching, I have 4 kids. If you could get us all a spot, including my wife, that would be 6 total, in whatever bunker or whatever spaceship or whatever ark, you know where to find us. Dex, go ahead.
Do you find it interesting, though, that he's numerous times, and even just the other day, made the comments about there are no evidence yet of alien life? And I'm not suggesting that there is. I have no proof that there is or isn't. I know that it's a popular topic, and it's definitely a popular topic amongst those people that feel like they've seen proof or have had an experience. But I think his most recent comment was something like, I've got so many thousands of satellites up in low Earth orbit, and we've never had to maneuver our way around a UFO before. So we still have seen no existence of aliens. So I don't know. I wonder what, if that is a cover or if that is the truth.
Well, if he's contracted with the government, I'm pretty sure there's an NDA on like top clearance stuff. And this is the other thing, we don't know all these people that are involved with these very top end contracts. We don't know what actual clearance they have. It's not like it's like their title and then their clearance is on their badge. We don't know how much he knows or how much anybody knows. I bet you JB probably doesn't know half of the stuff. One thing that we saw in a lot of Hollywood films is like the president didn't know about Area 51 or something like that. I actually believe that to be true. They have compartmentalized for things for such a long time, and it makes a lot of sense after the last 5 years that, say, agencies like CIA and things like that would be higher than the presidential offices. Like, the president doesn't know stuff about previous presidents' operations and things like that. They've compartmentalized it to the point because they might have to use the same tricks on the president. But what does that say to you? That also would say, if that's true, that means that the president isn't actually in charge. There is no one person with clearance to see everything. They're not going to trust all of the info to one person. They're not going to trust any one person to any amount of info. That's why they compartmentalize. That's why they compartmentalize everything. Do you guys agree with that? Disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. And then thank you again, Genius by Birth. I appreciate your support. Stormhawk, thank you. I just bought a 2024 Subaru. Guess what? My EMP shield took 5 minutes to transfer from my old truck to my new car. Yeah, once you have it, and Subaru actually has a lot of space under the hood, so not that sounded like I actually, half of my family has Subarus. My sister gave her Subaru, a 1996, to her son. Her son is still driving it. I think it's got like 360,000 miles. That's the one thing. The old Subarus, man, those things just kept going. I wouldn't want a Subaru unless it was like a WRX or something, and I would only have that if, somebody gave it to me. But then the other half has all like Hondas and Acuras. But yeah, great cars. As far as the room underneath, they have spacious. Like, it's easier to work on a Subaru than it is some of the other cars. I don't know about all of the newer ones, but a lot of the older ones, it was definitely easy, and I could see how it's easy to transfer an EMP shield. I used to be in the library. Thanks, team. Hey, thank you. I used to be in the library. Appreciate you stopping by again, and thank you for making it to tons of show. And then Bible Talk 777 says America doesn't have long now. I agree with you. I think that a lot of the countries, they all have a current system that they're kind of working with, the current culture, current everything. All of it's changing. It's not just here in the United States. It's everywhere. And by the way, if the U.S. changes, if we don't have much longer, then all of the countries that have been dependent on the U.S. dollar, all of those countries are going to sink too. So once the leadership sinks, all of the rest will follow. And then Carlton Sutton, thank you. It says 100. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. And then let's see here. And then before we talk about the bird cough, I do want to remind you, if you want a backup power supply, a lot of you that have dealt with a lot of power outages, especially lately, we got emails from folks that just went through really bad storms. There's been a few testimonials, and I have to ask permission of a recent one, but essentially they said that their power was out for 36 hours, and they got through it, not only with the help of energy, but with not only their Flex Tactical, but they also had the smaller Flex, and I can't remember what the smaller Flex one was called, but the little 350 milliwatt one. But it got through. It got them the LT, yeah. And do they still sell the LT?
I don't think so.
The LT, I don't have it. It's upstairs. The LT is like this big, and if they don't make it, it doesn't matter. I love that thing. It's like a huge battery bank basically, and it can plug straight into a solar panel, so you can actually have a full-on solar generator, and has regular plug-ins, and it has lighter plug. Anyways, yeah, I don't know if you can even get it anymore. It was really cool. It saved their day for 36 hours after a huge storm came through. That is what's cool about solar generators. Not to mention, of course, they're silent, so nobody is going to hear that they're running. They plug directly into solar panels, which can then be daisy-chained. You can daisy-chain up to 4, and if you want more than that, what's cool about this, the Energy Flex Tactical, is that it is modular. Just like Legos, you can actually add different bricks in to either extend the battery life up to 96 batteries. It would virtually make a 12-foot wall of batteries, or you can add mod boxes that allow it to have more solar panels, so you can plug in 12 instead of 4, and so on. You can add a UPS/supercharger mod that allows each battery to be charged in about 40 minutes from the wall. But what's really, really awesome about these is that you can have what you want, and what you don't want is all up to you. You could have the entire full-on, the whole 9 yards, And say you need to do a project, you can take the top off with one battery and take it with you and go. It's really awesome. Again, nobody's going to know you have it. Nobody's going to hear it from 3 blocks away like a gas power generator. You don't need to store gas. You just need to have yourself some solar panels. And again, once you have it stored up, then if the power goes out, you can even get a UPS mod so it will flip right over to it. So it's really cool. It's the same generator that just won the STTR Phase 2 contract, and they're going to be shipping out to the U.S. Army. They don't care if it's pretty or it takes selfies. They care if it turns on and turns on every time. That's why we fully have backed Energy since they started. We backed them before they got their Army contracts and the crazy win of that. But we've known they were good since the first one, the Flex 1500. So again, these are really solid products. They're built like appliances used to be, and they're going to work. The downside, only downside, is the wait. There's a multi-month wait, depends, but it could be as long as 6 to 7 months. So if you want one, you got to get your name on it now. They are in high demand. The main head unit and your first battery are probably going to be the hardest to get. Once you get that, again, it should be better over time. Lithium is being fought over. Again, this is made. I don't think there's bar none anything like it. So go over and check it out, marfooglenews.com/energy, and make sure to use the code Marfoogle. Again, that's marfooglenews.com/energy, INERGY, and make sure to use the code Marfoogle. All right, and then just one human is infected by the bird cough in the U.S., and more cases are likely. Man, the timing of this, I think it's a little bit too early for it to affect certain things that are happening later this year. But it is nerve-wracking, especially after we went through 2019. I told you guys the other day, I had a gut intuition. I told people months and months before all of CV went off. I knew to follow it before anybody was even talking about it. I was at the first patient in Bellevue. I was droning shots of the first place they put the first people. I was all over CV. I knew it was going to be big. I don't feel that same way. I don't think this is going to happen again like the way that it happened before. I think World War is next, unfortunately. But as far as this goes, it's very nerve-wracking because people are looking at it, and it's kind of like after we saw a train derailment, we all of a sudden saw a lot of coverage of train derailments, and people are like, why are all these trains derailing? When you look at the stats, a lot of it is like, well, actually trains derail a lot, but now people are paying attention to it, and there's more. But this is really terrifying because of how it spreads, and it is highly contagious. It's an avian cough that affects mammals across the U.S., and of course it transferred over, and they have one human case that has been reported. Dex, I guess people are worried if it ever gets to the point where we're stuck at home again.
Well, yeah, and I think this is actually the setup, and it's in here, and I think everybody should pay attention. What they're suggesting is there's only one because it's extremely limited in the testing, and they being Cat Dog Cat is blaming the state governments for not allowing them in, and they're blaming the farm owners for trying to keep them away. And because they're not allowed to come in and actually investigate and start looking to see where it's coming from, how it's going from animal to animal, and what is happening to the humans that have gotten it, which they presume could be more than one. They only just know of one because only one's been reported from, I think it was in Texas. So they're going on to say that there's, obviously in the farming industry, there's a lot of immigrant workers that are probably scared to deal with anything with the government and don't want to show up and or necessarily be looked at as they got confirmed of a cough and have to lose their job or be sent home. Of course, these industries have very tight margins. They don't want to have anybody there saying that they've got something going on. So that's the setup. The setup is this narrative is now being pushed by Cat Dog Cat. And you know who I'm talking about when I say that. I expect that this will now elevate to the administration, and it'll become the administration. Hey, look, you have a problem. You have a problem that there's this thing going on, and we don't know what's really going on because the big bad states won't let us in. And it's states like Texas and North Carolina, everywhere that has had some sort of outbreak with their animals. And it's a handful of states, to be honest. Michigan, Kansas, Idaho, Colorado, North Carolina, Ohio, South Dakota, Texas, New Mexico. All of those have not invited Cat Dog Cat to come in. They said, go away. We're doing our own thing. Leave us alone. And I know a lot of people are like, yeah, do that, state. Don't bring them in, because a lot of people don't like that. I understand. There's contention in this type of topic. I'm just describing what I feel is the path that's going to happen. So that administrative organization is going to go up to the administration, the president, and probably push through the Department of, Health or whatever. Hey, we've got a problem and we can't get the states to play nicely. And then you're going to see something come down from above that's going to sort of force this in, and that's going to open the door to say, oh, look what we found. We found all of this everywhere. It just wasn't being reported. And now we've got and they've even said, they say in this article, they have their procedures in place. They have their testing in place. They've got everything ready to go, and they've had it ready to go for
deploy.
Weeks. They're on standby right now, ready to roll. So watch it, folks. It's going to happen.
Yeah, they say we are ready to deploy. We have been for weeks. Those on standby at the Cat Dog Cat include multilingual and multidisciplinary epidemiological teams. They're even saying multilingual, like they can speak multi-languages so they can deal with anybody and everybody. Yet the 9 states with the infected cattle, Texas, New Mexico, Michigan, Kansas, Idaho, Colorado, North Carolina, Ohio, and South Dakota. You know what else scares me about this? Not that my wife just brought me a chicken sandwich. That also scares me. I'm happily going to eat it. Half happily, because it might have the cough. But what also scares me about this is it's all of these certain states and what is going on with farming and what is going on with the fake stuff, right? Who's investing in the fake stuff? Who is buying the farmland? And what is being done with that farmland? Is it being farmed or is it just sitting there? Many say that after these farms are getting bought up for twice, 3 times, 4 times as much as they're worth, they're not actually being farmed. They're just sitting there. Who does that? Who buys farms just to have them sit? Well, extremely, extremely, extremely rich people that may have huge and more money than 4 times a farm is worth invested into the fake stuff. And the fake stuff will only really pay off if you say, I don't know, have strings into the government, which will also be saying, hey, we have to go to fake meat because it's for the planet. It's a scary thought. So it's just watch this not be like the CV and more like, farming, huge, massive changes to farming that hurts farming overall. I don't know. Hopefully that's not the case. To all of you farmers out there, I hope that you all do very well, and I'm wishing you the best of luck for the next 10 years. But who knows what's going to happen there. Thank you, Stormahawk. Thank you, Genius by Birth. Thank you, Sweatin' Ministries. Thank you for being the top supporter tonight. Again, Genius by Birth. Thank you for being number 2. Thank you over on D-Live. Thank you, Vault Music, Scooby-Doo-Doo-Right, Kimbria. Is this name okay? It's pretty good. Comet Moon, The End is Near, Kimbria, and TWKRZ. Now I'm going to end with a soft voice to put you to sleep. Thank you, Elon, for watching. I appreciate your viewership. And if you would so kindly make sure to buy platforms and make them censorship free, that would be much appreciated. You guys have a great night. Love all of you. Thank your mods by going over to marfooglenews.com/friends. Thank you, Dex. I appreciate you.
Much love. Great job, brother.
And make sure to check out Marfoogle News, our sister channel. We will pop up a video or one of our last videos here. So make sure to click that. It is now the shoutro. It's not the outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shout. A shoutro. And we've got lots of problems. Where I say thanks to the people that matter most. You.